In Ohio, there are three main field sobriety tests which police officers use when they're trying to evaluate whether a person is under the influence of alcohol. The first and most important thing you should know about field sobriety tests is that you don't have to do them. Many police officers, when they suspect a person has been drinking, will order them out of the car and tell them, "I'm going to check you to make sure you're okay to drive." And they begin doing the test. They don't give the person the option to say yes or no. So what you need to know is you don't have to do these. And if you say, "No, I don't want to do these tests," that is not a problem and it's not illegal. Now, of the three main tests that they use, the first one is called the Horizontal Gaze Nystagmus. It's a long term, but what it basically is looking for is involuntary movement or jerking of your eye. The officer will take a pen or his finger and move it back and forth in front of the person's eye. And what he's looking for is jerking of the eyeball as it is turned out at an angle. Now, this can be caused by impairments such as being under the influence of alcohol, but it can also be caused by things like problems with the eye, excessive tiredness, some medications, and a number of other things. So it's not a completely reliable way to determine if a person is impaired. The second test that the officers normally use after they do the gaze nystagmus test is something called the walk and turn. In that test, the officer is measuring the person's ability to follow instructions and some balance and coordination. The problem with this test is many people can't do it under any circumstances, whether they've been drinking or not. The first thing the officer will do for the walk and turn test is ask the person to stand, putting one foot in front of the other one. The officer then will give the rest of the instructions, and he's looking to see if the person moves their foot into a more comfortable position, because they're looking for clues on the test, and that's one of the clues, if the person moves their feet while the officer is giving the instructions. The next thing he's going to be looking for is if the person starts the test before the officer finishes his instructions. Many people are nervous when the officer begins to say, "I'm going to have you take 9 steps," they start taking 9 steps. And that's a clue the officer looks for as well. After giving the initial instructions, the officer is going to ask the person to take 9 steps out on an imaginary line. These tests are normally performed on the roadway, by the side of the road, and often there aren't any lines to go by, so they tell the person to imagine a line. So the person's supposed to walk 9 steps on an imaginary line, heel to toe, counting as they go, and then turn. The clues the officer is looking for there are, is the person going to keep on the straight line? They're going to lose their balance and go off to the side. Are they going to touch heel to toe? They watch that one very closely. The person has to literally touch the one foot in front of the other as they walk. And whether or not they're going to move their arms while they're doing it. They'll instruct the person to keep their arms no more than 6 inches away from their side. So if the person raises their arms at all, that's a clue. One of the biggest ways people fail that test is on the turn. Most people will get to the end of the 9 steps and make a turn, but what the officer says in the instructions is keep one foot planted and make a series of short steps. So the person then turns and they're instructed to walk 9 steps back, and the test is completed. The next step that the officer will have, the next test the officer will have the person do is called the one-leg stand. In this test, the person's going to be instructed to stand on one leg of their choice, hold the other one straight out, look down at their toe, and count by 1,000s for 30 seconds. What the officer's looking for there is, does a person sway, do they move their arms for balance, or do they hop, trying to keep their balance on one foot? Once these 3 tests are completed, the officer will make a decision whether or not to arrest the person. And if they're going to, they'll usually do it there on the spot. Now, normally when police officers do these field sobriety tests, they'll have the person do that in front of the cruiser. And the reason for this is that many police cruisers nowadays are equipped with a dash cam. So all of these tests are captured on video. If you have been arrested for DUI and you did field sobriety tests, it's very important to have your attorney get a copy of this video so that he can look at these tests and see if they were properly administered and how you did on them. If you look good on those tests, the argument could be made that you were arrested without probable cause, and anything that happens from that point can be thrown out, including a breath test if you took one.